All right, recording has been started. Welcome everybody to the FRC Sunday Night Roundtable. Tonight's topic is sort of a topic by default. No one had signed up to give a topic, so I thought, well, it's the fall and we got to train our new students, so let's do a talk on training. And then I check and see that Talon is going to give a talk on training coming up in a couple of weeks, so I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to steal their thunder, so I decided we would do a talk on team building since we have a lot of new people, and we got to get them all incorporated into our teams. And so how do we incorporate new people? And I think we'll probably end up talking about how do we take this new leadership group and build cohesion in the leadership group. Dominic and I were chatting earlier in the call, and they just got back from a team building retreat. So I'm very eager to hear about that. In fact, I told Dominic if he wants to sort of lead the discussion, I'm happy to let him do that as well. So that's our topic for tonight. I have nothing planned. So if anybody wants to kick us off with a question or share their thoughts on team building or what their team does, I happily turn the floor over to the group, and anybody can start us off.
Yeah, so I can get started on, as Scott said, 2491 No Mythic. We just got back from our annual team retreat. And so this is in the 3-day overnight. We try to get students to come up on Friday, sleep overnight, have the bulk of everything on Saturday, and then some people leave Saturday night, and then some people stay overnight on Sunday, and then come back down. We do it at alumni's cabin up north on Pipe Lake in Wisconsin. It's about an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. And so, yeah, we just came back. It was really fun. Nice, perfect weather for it. Got a lot of time out on the water. And so this is sort of the goal of the retreat is both team building in terms of getting to know everyone on the team, getting to, get people's interests and everything, but also sort of setting expectations, setting norms, talking about the processes of the team and sort of what we're expecting from both new and returning students, sort of what changes are happening this year, those sort of things. So that's sort of our team retreat. We did it really early this year due to planning problems and stuff. But that was sort of our team retreat. And then, so if anyone else has other examples of how their team do team building, that would be.
So Dominic, you take the entire team to this cabin? Oh, yeah, I had made the false assumption this was the leadership group, but you take the whole team.
No, so our team retreat is everyone. We have 33 students on the team this year. 29 ended up making it up. We have 15 or 18 mentors this year, and I think 12 or 13 made it up. And so it's pretty much the entire team. The cabin's a bit small, so it's a bit cramped, but we make it work. We also do have a mentor and captain's retreat that happened earlier in the year, so that we can sort of, again, set expectations for those groups as well, but those are separate events.
When do you recruit new members? Like, we had our new member meeting literally last week. Because we need time for school to, at least the way we work, we need time for school to start so we can go to some classes and see some people. Are you recruiting in the spring to prep or okay?
No, so we so how our recruiting works, we have experienced the team nights. Those were the first 2 weeks of school. So that first Thursday and then the next Tuesday and Thursday. And those are times for new prospective students to come experience sort of what the work of No Mythic is and robotics, and again, just sort of get information about the team. Then we actually have an application system, and so people who are interested in the team then fill out like a Google form saying like what sub team are they interested in, and like what drew them to robotics. Then they have a 20-minute interview with 2 mentors, which again is sort of getting to know the student, getting to set expectations, getting to know like what accommodations they might need on the team. And so that all happens in the first 2 weeks of school. Then the mentors meet that Sunday to decide on who the new students for the team. And then one of our schools goes on a week-long camping trip. And so we had one meeting last week on Tuesday with our new students, and then we went on this retreat. So it was a really tight turnaround, a lot of stressful planning and carpooling and rooming and everything. But we made it work, and it ended up working out, but it's a very, very tight timeline.
Dominic, I had a question of, during this retreat, do you guys like have planned activities that you guys do together? I want to know more about how I know Saturday was the main day. I want to kind of know how that day looks like.
Yeah, so the people who stayed overnight, they get breakfast at 8:20, and then everyone who's coming up that morning comes at around 9 o'clock. And so we start with setting just expectations about the day, and so sort of like rules about the cabin, all of that sort of things. And then we get right into sort of expectations. So the first thing we talked about was cliques. So thinking about, right, how do we sort of, have people have friend groups on the team while also, making sure it's still inclusive. And so a lot of that is talking about team culture and all of that stuff. We also have discussions about our team values and sort of how do we live into those values. We also have a section about team history. So that's a presentation by our team coach, sort of going through, these are all the years we've competed and photos of the robots. And then we also talk about the vision and mission of the team. We also have fun things like games. So we do like a sub-team Olympics where all the different sub-teams compete in like various events. So that was really fun. So there was like a trivia event or like juggling or like who can do a handstand for the longest or whatever. And so those are really fun, just like, getting to know people games. Another trust building activity we did was Bake Cookie Bake, where the entire team like makes a zipper with their arms and one person on their back goes down the line being carried by everyone. So that was a very interesting activity. No one got dropped, fortunately. We also then obviously like eat lunch and dinner together. We talk about DEI efforts on the team and sort of how that plays into our team culture and how that impacts how the team interacts with the broader FRC community. We also talk, especially in these past 2 years, we've been working a lot about how to give feedback on the team. And so we talk about our expectations of giving feedback to each other. And then we also set team goals. So thinking about what are our goals for the entire team, and then what also is our sub-team specific goals. So like I'm on the operations team. And so one of our goals was, hey, we want to increase our Instagram presence. We want to have over 1,000 followers on Instagram this year. And then we also talk about accountability and taking breaks from the team and sort of what's the expectations about that. And so it's a mixture of fun games and getting to know you and whatnot, and also having those sort of expectation discussions and whatnot.
So Dominic, I'm kind of curious. You mentioned that you do interviews and applications for your team. Do you have a limit on team number then? Because I think right now for KnightKrawler, we're at like 50 plus, almost 60 students, but we're an all-comers team. So I'm just kind of curious if you could talk to your structure.
Yeah, so our team structure, we have this year we have 7 captains, which are students that lead our various sub teams. So we have 2 builder captains, 1 programming captain, 2 operations captain, and then 1 general team captain. And so the idea behind our limit, which this year was 33, was the idea that we can have 6 non-captain students per captain. And so that allows, the captain to make sure that all of the students are supported and have tasks to do and everything. And so that everyone's doing meaningful work and can really engage with the process of robotics. And so with that application system, we aren't necessarily looking at, do you have experience from robotics, or do you have experience doing these sort of things? We're really looking at, are you going to be a good fit for the team? Are you going to be engaged with the team? And are you open to like teamwork and collaboration and learning new things as well? And so that's sort of where the application system comes in.
Great, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lily from Team 3926, and we haven't been doing very good on our team building activities and stuff, and I kind of wanted to know if there was like a way to make a better team building event. Like you mentioned you had like retreats and stuff, but I don't think we have the budget to do that. So is there I just wanted like ideas on how to make better team building without like spending a lot. And also we had an issue with clicks on our team, and I wasn't too sure on if there was a way to like make it so that there was gonna be like less clicks without being like too, I don't know, aggressive about it.
Yeah, that's definitely been something we've sort of struggled with and had to find that balance of. One really great way we found is that when the team eats dinners together at practice, we do something that we like to call unicorn families, because our mascot is the unicorn. And so those are groups of both students and mentors that's a mixture of sub-team. And so they, once a week, eat dinner together and sort of talk about the team, talk about their experience on the team, talk about what work they've been doing that day. And so that's a really great way that we found to sort of break down the sort of exclusivity of cliques and get more people to know everyone on the team. And so, you can sort of get to know what other people on the team are doing. And it also really helps you students build relationships with mentors who aren't on their sub team, and sort of build those trusting relationships, so that if the student does have a problem with something that's happening on their sub team, they have someone outside of their sub team that they can go and talk to, which we found to be really helpful. Yeah, Eric.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on with our team, and we're fortunate in a way that our team runs for the last few years the FTC program. So what we have is a group of freshmen coming in already knowing each other and knowing our team, because we mentor them, we run the whole program. So that helps that people know each other to start with. Then what we have is usually weekly meetings, and part of that meeting is to sort of updates on what the team's doing and what's coming up. But the last half of each meeting is totally team building. So is all there are games, and a lot of it has to do with trying to learn each other's names. And as I said, we might have something where you have to sit in a circle. We actually have to go outside and throw a ball to each other, and then you have to name the person you're throwing it to. And if you don't have the name, then you drop out and see who knows the most names. But games like that occur. The other thing is September has been we have like, I would say 9 sub-teams, and each of these sub-teams during September did training sessions for all the new students. So they could join as many as they want and then learn about each sub-team, get to know each other. We get to know them. So programming, we actually ran 3 2-hour sessions to teach, but every sub-team then invites the students in. Previously, we had the school activities session that to recruit. I'm not sure we really pick up too many new students, freshmen from that. The other is we run activities all through the summer, such as, well, anyway, where we are recruiting students, we will be part of a July 4th gathering that we talk to hundreds of students and parents. We bring out the robot and they get to run it, and it's an Eden Prairie event. And at that time we're recruiting. We have a lot of different activities that we go out to the community that we bring our robot and try and recruit. So through all that, we get by now, all the freshmen sort of know each other. We sort of trying to learn their names. We probably have over 50 students now. We're totally inclusive. Everybody gets to join the team. And then we had the MRI yesterday. Was it yesterday or I forget. It was a Saturday. I'm losing track. No, that was yesterday. Yeah. Today's Sunday. Cool. Anyway, we brought a lot of freshmen out so that they could be part of it and learn about what a tournament is and how to get excited. So we've been doing pretty well of doing this team adjustment and building the team through all the way already through the season.
Yeah, another thing that we started doing last year on our team is we have monthly team events, which is outside of practice. They're sort of just like fun hangouts for the team. So like, I remember one time we did like a board game night, or we like watched the Barbie movie together, or like we were part of the Swift initiative last year. And so one night was making friendship bracelets together. And those are really great ways. Once you get buy-in from one person in a friend group, then typically the entire friend group comes, we found. But then new students get to, still engage in discussion with that friend group. And so you still sort of have cliques, but they're much more inclusive, right? You have those friend groups, but they're not necessarily cliques. They're more just like groups of people who, are friends at school outside of robotics. But you then also have a larger group in robotics that they're all friends with as well. And so we found that to be really helpful. And those conversations that happen during friendship bracelet making are, not robotics related. They're about like Taylor Swift or like, about, what school projects are happening or whatever, right? And so these are really just like fun times, like outside of robotics almost, to, build that community that we've really found helpful.
I would like to hear if anyone has any suggestions for good ways to know names. So as a mentor coming in and meeting 30-ish new students in the beginning of the year and trying to, usually I do pretty good within a week or so of the students that I interact with weekly for my sub-team. But then there's also those students that you don't interact with weekly basis that might on different sub-teams. And I'm really interested to know if people have suggestions for ways that they have found that helps them get to know names, something that maybe we can adopt.
Hey, Scott, the easiest way to get to know students' names? Have a smaller team. I'm sorry. That's not, that doesn't sound like a problem I ever have because, for example, one of my newest kid, I coach him at golf. I have him twice a day. And then he decided, Mr. Miller, I'm going to join robotics just so I can pester you more. So, maybe, sorry, I know this is serious, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. So small teams probably don't have that issue because most of our kids already know each other in so many other capacities before they even get there. And then if you only have one or two adults, who are the same people regular, it's kind of like they already met those people in different capacity already at the same school. So it's easier that way. But I would I would let the people who have something to say it.
As I said, our students during our team building come up with a different game every time to try and find. They're all about names. So last week we through a doorway, we split into two and put up a curtain. And then as each student, we had somebody from one side to the other side. They pick up the curtain, and the first one to name the person on the other side, the one who was last would have to join the other one. So it's a competitions just to learn names. And I don't know how they come up with these, but as you said,
we've done that one. Eric, that's one of the ones that we do. We do the drop the curtain, and then whoever's first, they pull the other person to their side. That's one of the ones we do. Nicole, who's on the call here, we did one where we went around in a circle and they did an association. So this time Nicole decided that we should do say your name and then say a food. And then you had to remember everybody's name and their food as you went around the circle. But I think these name games and these name association games are really good and competitive. I think encourages people to really pay attention to other people's names. But I'd love to add more tools to our arsenal for that. So if anyone else has any games that they play, I'd love to hear them.
Well, one trick I do, because I'm terrible on names, is I usually, when we have bus kids somewhere, I then print out a list and I have them, each student on the list has to check with me before they get on the bus. This is personal. And it might be more than needs to be done, but for me, then I have a list and I can associate it with a student as they get on the bus for something we have to go to. So as I said, I'm terrible, but that's one of my tricks, is having the students have to come to me. So I check them off and then I have an association.
Yeah, at least for us, it's just pure repetition. Like on the first day of practice, we did it like twice, where we just went around with names and pronouns and what sub-team you're on. And then during the retreat, we did it like another time at the beginning on Saturday. And then as sub-teams, we did it. And so just out of pure repetition, you end up getting it forced into your mind. I think also for us, when we do competitive games, we end up cheering each other on as well. And so that's really helpful for us of like, if you are rooting for someone, you better know their name because that's what you want to chant. And so like our first day of practice, we did like the competitive rock, paper, scissors, where if you lose, you go behind the other person and cheer them on. And so that was really helpful of just like, you need to know the person's name if you want to cheer for them. And so that was helpful.
One thing that I've gotten some feedback from some of our parents that are 2052 new parents on the team, new students on the team, and some of our students have some neurodivergence or anxiety. And I have gotten some feedback for some of those students, some of these large group name games can be very challenging for them and be very uncomfortable. So that's, I think, as a mentor, something that we try to be aware of and accommodate. We had one student who said point blank, I don't want to do this. So they helped hold the curtain at the name drops, and it was a way for them to participate but not to have as much pressure. So I think that's, as mentors, something we need to be aware of, and leaders, student leaders, when you're kind of assessing activities for your team, that might be a possibility, that you might have to balance that with some lower key type of activities too, name tags, things like that maybe they're a little more comfortable with.
Tom, you get your hand up.
Yeah, I probably don't understand how the hand raising thing works. My response would be, we've been at about 35 students and 10 mentors for the past couple of years. The students seem to figure it out pretty easily. When you started, I thought you were talking about from a mentor who maybe doesn't show up all the time perspective. I made a point of being there a lot and just getting to know their names. They do slides at the beginning, so they're kind of all collected together. So it's easy to sort of look at each one of them and think it over and figure out names that way over the first weeks or months until I've got it down. At least that's what works for me. The neurodivergent thing is a good point. I don't really like to make competitions myself, so I would kind of steer away from that. But that's kind of my input anyhow.
Tom, you mentioned slides. What did you mean by that?
Oh, I'm sorry. So at the beginning of every meeting, the captains present slides, at least a couple, maybe more, to sort of center the team, I guess you'd say, and indicate how we might split up for that given meeting and what the highlights are, what's coming up on the schedule and the calendar, things like that. Plus, I'll also add, they've got a student Discord that up until the last couple of years, mentors haven't been involved with. There's a couple mentors on it now, but we pretty much just observe. The captains manage the Discord, so they get to know each other that way as well.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about that at all, but that prompted something for me. During our closing meeting every practice, we do gratitudes for people on the team. And so that's another great way of, like, you thank people by their names, or you recognize people by their names. And so, even if you're not on the same sub team, you just, by hearing that person saying, such and such person did like great work on the robot today or whatever, right? And so that's a great way to sort of get.
And if I can add,
even, while also doing other things as well.
I'm sorry, Dominic. I apologize for talking over you. I thought you had finished. And I'll add, I've 2549 Miller Bots. We're part of the Minneapolis Public School District. I have a captain now that's joined. I don't know if Reese feels like commenting at all. He might have some perspective from the student point of view or the captain point of view of what it's like getting to know people's names, and he might not.
Something that KnightKrawler started doing, I think last year, is we would previously wait until we had all the students had their new uniform, which we usually didn't get until end of December or early January, because we had to, see what the game was and make sure we had all the people on the list and everything. And if we didn't have our uniforms, then we didn't do photos. And so the website with the roster of all the students never got updated until January. And last year, we have a box of shirts that people can borrow. So if they're brand new and they don't have a shirt, they can go into the restroom, throw a shirt over top of whatever they're wearing. And getting the website updated earlier with all the students has been helpful as well. And I think we're going to continue to try to do that so that by mid to late October, everybody who's currently on the team, we can get their photo up so that you can go to the website and see everybody's on the team. And then we'll usually, any late ads, will end up getting them on the site a month or so later.
Yep. And just to piggyback on that, one of the things that our students with 2052 have done then is we've had a lot of alumni who have a lot of gold shirts, because I mean, if you're doing, at least for us, our shirts don't change year to year. They are the same. So we've had a lot of alumni donate back t-shirts, and that has become kind of our storehouse of shirts to use when we do the photos. And then we always have a couple extra work shirts. And if somebody needs a specific size, you know, like returning students will let other students borrow their work shirt for the photos. But it also has been a really nice time for us to get uniforms ordered. When we're doing those website photos, our parent that volunteers and does our uniform ordering will come in. She'll get the student's name. She'll check the fit on the t-shirts that they're wearing for the photo when we're doing the team photos, and then the work shirt, and make sure that she's got all that information and everything looks good, and talk to them. So they kind of do assembly line. They come, they get their shirts, they go change. We kind of rotate a couple students through returning that already have a uniform. They come back, they get their photo taken, they go off and see our parent who does the uniform fit, make sure everything gets them checked off as far as their uniform that they're gonna need for sizes for shirts, sends them out to get changed back and bring their stuff back. So it works out pretty well. We get a couple things done at the same time.
Yeah, I also know one thing that's not necessarily related to learning names, but one thing we do is we make like nice metal laser engraved name tags for all of our students and mentors. And so that's a great way to sort of incentivize people to wear a name tag at practice. And so that's been really helpful. And it's also really nice at competitions then as well, for students and mentors to have name tags as well, because then, you know, during strategy discussions, we can call each other by our names and whatnot. And so that's been really helpful. But
so this isn't really name related, but I wanted to know how you all like structure team building days, because 3926 hasn't been doing that great on like the previous team building like days, in my opinion. I just wanted to know how like other teams structure them.
Well, I will share that 2052 has talked about doing dedicated outside of meeting team building days for the whole team, and still really hasn't done that yet. We try to carve out times within our regular meetings to do sort of that get to know each other type of thing, and I think we'll continue to try to do more of that. I'd like to see us do something on a Saturday or Tuesday night or something like that, but there's already so much pressure that we meet at robotics and people get there adding additional things. We get a fair amount of pushback, not just from the students, but also from the mentors. And it's a struggle. I mean, I wish we would do more, but at the same time, I kind of like having my days off as well. So I don't have any good advice, but I wanted to fill some of the dead air here, because we don't really do it. Does anyone else like pick non-robotics days to do team building?
So, sorry. Listening to you guys talk, I think it was Dominic who said something that I really, really like, and I think maybe for a small team that might work for us. And my wife was just saying, we're just having a background conversation here. Our kids already hang out with each other a lot of the time outside of robotics and other things too, but it's a good thing when they gather as just robotics, team to just do something other than building robots, and talking robots, just play some. And so we were talking here is like, well, maybe which one of our maybe not during build season, but like in the preseason, like which practice day we can give up to say, hey, you're already gonna be here. Let's say once or every other, or however many frequency you want, depends on your team. To say, hey, let's have some board games, have some junk food. Let's just build people in that time, build positive relationship, good interactions. So because when build season comes, that gets really stressful, and people pretty soon start crawling under each other's skin. But you build some of that tolerance during that time, when it's build season, and you're able to go back and kind of like what you already invested in each other, you can kind of draw back like, oh, Beckett is not all that annoying after all, or Johnson is not all that, you know, you learn that little quirks in some of those informal. I think yes, as a teacher, giving up time to kids when you want something constructive to happen is a really difficult expectation for adults. However, what I've learned in my own classroom is when I do that, the the payout for me is great. The kids can see it tangible, as a tangible thing for them, because I think, and Scott, you're right. It's just really when you don't have our scheduled practice time, that off time, you kind of want to, hey, I got to go home early today, So, and I think the kids and their families too might also be sharing that same sentiment as well too. So, yeah.
This is Eric from Talon. Our students seem to be very excited about putting their own gatherings together outside even. One of the kids actually ran a bonfire one night and invited all the kids from the team. I'm not sure any mentors even went to that, but they seem to come up with these things, gatherings that they want to do, but all kids are always invited to these things. So I'm sure that was a fun thing for them to do, and as I said, their own team building. Even off season, we still have open room at least one day, or if not a couple of days a week. And whoever wants to hang out, it's usually right after school into at least dinner time. So whoever wants to hang out in the room, we have to make sure we have mentors to cover, not that they have to do anything there, but they seem to get it that they like being with each other.
Yeah, I also know you mentioned that you might not necessarily have the budget for like a full team retreat. One thing we did 2 years ago was we reached out to the Bakken Museum, being like, hey, we want to we want to have a workshop for our team. Would you be willing to lend us a classroom for the day? Right. And they were like, yeah, of course. And so we got actually their classroom space for free, which was really, really generous of them. And, we had students bring their own lunch and whatnot. And that was our team retreat. So it was also, like setting expectations and going through processes and whatever. But it was also just a lot of just like getting to know each other. I know like our first activity of the day was like a bingo card where you had to find the different people on the team that like fulfilled different like criteria or whatever. So it's like find like one of the build captains, or like play a game of rock, paper, scissors with someone or whatever, right? And so that was a lower budget team retreat, and so that was a really helpful way. And like probably if you reached out to the Science Museum or like the Bakken Museum or some other space that is promoting STEM education as well, you have that sort of space, or even in your school. Right. We typically don't do it at a school because we like to, separate it from the school. But, thinking about, could you come in on a weekend, take over some of the classrooms of the school and have that sort of just, fun, day where people can get to know each other.
Yeah. Do you have regular team meetings, Lily? Then you can, as I said, that's what we do. Is we have our presentations, but then the rest of, usually about an hour, is our team meeting. and then over half of it is just team building. So the kids are already there, and then you do these activities right then.
We have like meetings before every time we meet, and when our team meets, like we basically just talk about what everyone is gonna do for the day, but we haven't had like weekly meetings where we have like team bonding events or anything. It's just been like robot making. And currently though, we're getting new students into the different sub teams, so the new students might like jump around and take a look at each sub team, and we have like tasks for each sub team right now. Thanks.
As I said, our team meetings are the ones where we get everybody together, as opposed to when we separate out. But every team meeting ends with a team building, and you have to have our captains. They come up with everything. They pre-decide what they want to do for team building, and then everybody's dragged in. Even the mentors that don't want to are dragged into this team building activity. It just becomes a regular part of our meetings.
Kirk, it looked like you were going to say something or wanted to say something, and I'm not sure if your mic wasn't working or maybe what the deal was. But if your mic doesn't work and you have a question, just throw it in the chat, and we're happy to discuss it too. If your comment, whatever it might be, you just want to make sure that you didn't feel like you were pushed out.
Oh no, I think my mic was wrong mic. I had a couple different mics. So it sounds like you guys hear me now. I was just mention with 4674, what we started last year was taking, because we are just going to start our meetings, was actually taking the first 15, 20 minutes to do an activity related to one of our values. There was also a team building activity. So just some of them were just goofy things. Some of them were maybe a little more, but they're all intentional. And I reached out this year to one of our places that does a high ropes course and group activities, and said, hey, can you give me some ideas for what are some things we can do, and give them a list of my values that, I want to do something that kind of teaches the value of initiative, or teamwork or hard work or enthusiasm. I think enthusiasm is a big one, because we all can get kind of down in the dumps or have a bad attitude, and those types of things. So that's something we're just kind of doing at the beginning of each meeting, taking 15, 20 minutes just so we touch on them and have a group building activity before we go on to somewhere else.
Sometimes too, unfortunately, sometimes it becomes our usual suspects, as I like to call them, the same group of kids that always tend to volunteer and do things. I see Jeremy shaking his head, yes. But also potentially doing some sort of community activity can be team building. We do, as a fundraiser in the fall, we work at the compost site one day. And yes, it's additional above and beyond. It's on a weekend. And you do get usually the usual suspects showing up, all the kids that generally tend to volunteer for those things. But you get additional kids mixed in the mix, new members that really maybe don't quite know the other kids as well. And it becomes a really good bonding experience to even do something like that, where there's some sort of community service as a way to team build and give back also. So that's just one idea. I mean, we don't do those things intentionally with that purpose, but I have noticed that those kids that participate in those events do seem to form more of a bond and team approach.
I think planned team building activities are incredible, and we also do that especially in the fall. We do 15 to 20 minutes of that. I just Google team building activities, and see which ones we just pick one. But I also just want to leave room for, like, there is a spontaneity involved in this too. One of our mentors went to Ace Hardware last build season and got some supplies, like bolts or whatever. He also got a thing of cheese balls, like a big tub of them. They were disgusting. Like, I honestly think that they've been in that Ace Hardware for 10 years. I don't understand. But we opened them, and then people like had one and were like, what is this? And then, that turned into this whole thing of the kids thinking it was so funny. And we had our new member meeting last week. And the returning students bring it out, and they're like, anybody want a cheese ball? And we're all like, well, I mean, you don't have to have a cheese ball. This is not hazing. Like, this is not hazing. You don't have to do it. But some of the new kids really engaged, like they thought it was funny. And I think that kind of like inside joke or like they, that sort of thing is also super important. And I don't have advice on how to make that happen. A mentor happened to buy cheese balls at an Ace Hardware, and then it turned into this thing. But I just want to say that there is some spontaneity. The other thing that our team loved doing was playing the coconut song. Don't Google it. It's ridiculous, but they loved playing that during build season meetings, which then turned into this meme, of the team that we like coconuts. So anyway, just want to say something about spontaneity as well.
Yeah, going off of that, one thing we do is whenever we clean up, we like have a song that we listen to. So like for the build sub team, they always do Life is a Highway. And then like we've recently been doing Chapel Roan songs. And so like those are really fun of just like, having fun while we're, doing something that's not so fun, right? And then sometimes that transitions into a dance party as we transition to closing meeting. And so just having those sort of, fun time to just be not students or not robotics people, but just being friends, being people, having chill time to, having those couple minutes where you're like, okay, we're actually more similar than we think. And so that's been really fun.
Our kids also do some robot stuff that we don't sanction. We had an extra chassis, and they put a lawn chair on it, put it out in the parking lot, and started running people around. Other than making sure they had helmets on, we didn't have much control over that one. But this definitely was a team building.
Another question I had to ask was, like for each sub team, sometimes we'll have some students like sit out and not do what we're supposed to be doing, and I'm not really sure how to incorporate them into what we're doing sometimes. Like, I don't know, sometimes some kids will just be on their phone when we're supposed to be doing a task, and I like try to give like them something to do, but they end up going back on their phone, and I'm not really sure what to do after that.
Hey, Lily. I think it goes back to what Michelle said earlier, too. Sometimes some kids have a certain level of anxiety that they have to overcome. That's a whole separate issue. Don't do that. There's another issue there, too. Another layer is that people who just are so attached to their little devices during our practices, I'm sorry, your cell phone is not much of any use during our practices. If you're doing CAD, if you're learning something, do it on a computer. It's not on your cell phone. And I hate to be that guy who restrict the use of those devices, but I feel like even in the business world now, there's been numerous studies that show the laptop like this and a cell phone like right there, and it's always peaking and always all that stuff removes productivity. And at the end of the day, you want their attention where you are and not somewhere else. And I'm not saying those other things or those other aspects of their lives are not important, but I think part of it is educating to focus on the task at hand and to that. Then the next one. It's like, I have this thing where when I have a difficulty overcoming a bigger challenge, I'm like, okay, what's in front of me right now? If I can slay that monster, then I can get to the next part, into the next part, into the next part. But now, if I'm checking my little rectangular box and what other status that I need to respond to, or who's having a meltdown somewhere on the other end of town, I am sure, and this is gonna make it sound like a callous human being, there's somebody else in the world that can put out that fire during that time. Worst case scenario, 911 would be called. I'm sorry. I'm not a horrible person. I just feel like sometimes people need to prioritize certain thing at a time. And I've told my kids, if I say put your phone away and you can't, you are not coming to practice next time until we have a meeting with your parents or guardian. Because if it continues, you will be off the team. Because you are not being of a valuable asset to the team. And you're only there for what you can get and when you can get it. And part of that is just the reason why I do that.
We deal with this a lot on our team, and sometimes it is sort of a coping mechanism for anxiety of I just need a mental break, and some students, they just have to do that in order to have that break. Generally, my approach has been, if I see somebody who's on their phone, I'll come over and ask them, hey, are you stuck? Do you need help? Because sometimes people just don't want to ask for help, right? And so I'll always try to check in and say, is there something I can do to get you back on track or anything like that? But there are a group of students who say, nope, I'm good. No problem. They'll set their phone down and they'll go back to their work, but then immediately they'll be right back on their phone. At some point, I'm like, okay, that's your deal. If that's what you want to do with your time here, that's fine with me. As long as you're not distracting another student with your phone, you get out of robotics whatever you put into it. And I'm going to sort of direct my attention to people that are being productive or want to be productive. Again, sometimes students are just having a bad day. Sometimes they need a break. I just try to make sure that if they're on their phone because they're stuck, try to get them unstuck. But if they're on the phone because that's what they want to be doing, there's only so much you can do to direct people. And, if they want to come to robotics and be on their phone, as long as we're making an attempt to try to help them get past whatever they're stuck on, if they decline that assistance, then I used to try to fight those battles. I used to try to fight saying, hey, if you're here, you're going to be productive, because that's how I would manage my children. That's not the way all students need to be managed. So I've changed my approach to basically say, how can I remove any roadblocks you're having? And otherwise, if what you want to do is be on your phone, that's fine. But we have a point system at KnightKrawler. We've talked about it so many times, but if you're not working, you're not getting points. And if you're not getting points, you might not travel or you might not letter. And so, that's how you're just deciding to use your time, but don't come to me at the end of the night asking for points when you spent 2 hours on your phone. So that's sort of the way I've approached similar situations, is try to get them past a roadblock, but at the end of the day, you just can't drag them to success.
Dominic, I didn't see. Did you have your hand up before me?
I think so. But I think one thing we like to do is when we say it's fine to take breaks, right? Obviously. But we try to say, take your break for less than 10 minutes and do it in the hallway, right? Our build space has windows out into this hallway. And so, saying you can take a break, right? You can go and walk around if you're stuck on something, but you need to do it in this specific area, and so we can keep an eye on you. That's been really helpful for us. And also, sort of with the, if they're stuck, something I like to do is assign them to a task with someone else, right? So they can keep each other accountable. And sort of saying, if someone else is also counting on me to get this work done, then they're more likely to get the work done, is something we found. And so pairing up a new student with an experienced student so that, you can make sure that the task is getting done has been really helpful. It's also really helpful, we found, for if someone's not interested in doing the work, or isn't doing the work, up to the standard you were expecting, having that second person there that they can bounce ideas off of, that they can, collaborate with. We found that to be really helpful as well.
Lily, I'm wondering if you can say a little bit more about, I want to make sure what your role is and how many mentors you have available, how many students you're dealing with, and how prevalent this problem is or this situation is that you're seeing.
So I'm co-leading co-team for 3926, and we have a build lead. We have a CAD lead as well, and for wiring this year, I'm also like helping to lead that as well because we don't have good electronics like this year, and so I have to do that. And for our mentors, we have like some that come in, but we are mostly student run because we don't tend to have like a lot of mentors come in. I mean, for co-team at least, we don't really have a mentor for co-team. For the amount of students on the team, I think we have like a pretty balanced amount, except for our like what do you call it? Like letter writing and like fundraising sub team, we have like more mentors, but we don't have a lot of students on the letter writing and fundraising like team right now. For co-team, I think we have like 6-ish people. I think our team is currently the biggest right now. And yeah, but most people this year have been like focused, but it's a little frustrating when some of like the people who are working with me get like sidetracked, and I try to give them tasks to do, but like they don't really do that. I don't know.
Another option, I would suggest it might be worth it to try and have a mentor available, not necessarily to intervene, but I'm surprised you don't have a little bit of adult presence. And maybe another option, I think Dominic and Scott said some good things. Maybe another option is just simply to have those students show up less often and see if their behavior changes. But I think I agree. It's a refuge if they're not helping or if they're not hindering. They might need a big break, not just a small one. I don't know if that's worth anything, but.
So what? I don't know, Lily. How do you guys decide on who travels with the team? Because sometimes, if people know a direct outcome of the behavior or their contribution to the team, and like what I was saying earlier, it goes with something similar to what Scott said on our team. You have to, if you want to get letter, you have to earn a certain amount of hours during the build season. So right now we adapted not having. Hang on a second, please. Hang on. We've adapted, like, we don't stop tracking hours until after our first off season and NMRC event where we bring everyone. Like right now, I have one, two, three new kids that just joined our team, and so all those people will go and see. Here's the fun. This is what we're building this towards, all this hype towards, and then we'll come back and I start to say every meeting. I start, Lily got here at 3:30 and she stayed till 5:30 and she was productive. So she got those hours as credit, towards her score. And here's what happened is when you start falling off track, one of the reminder is, hey, being here doesn't mean you really are here. And so if you're here and you're really not here, that's okay. If you're not being obnoxious and taking other people off task. However, it's not going to count towards your hours. It's more like a social time for you, and it's not a beneficial, because when we go to competition, like you all know here, right? I love this. Thanks to Scott for his mentorship to my team, because now when judges start walking towards my pit, I just walk away. If you didn't build your robot, you didn't put your time into it, you're gonna make a fool of yourself. So if they start kind of making those connections, like, hey, all these tasks that we're doing, it will lead to this understanding. I had a student who got mad at me because, why did you make me build this stuff 15 times and we didn't end up using it? I'm like, because at competition, when the part that we used broke, guess who fixed it? You did. It was not directly what you fixed during practice, but you build up that, that tolerance for, problem solving. And she, before she, it's a whole separate thing, but it's just being able to directly tie their now into what's coming may help. I don't know. But like what Tom just said, also not having an adult to kind of help you, rein them in sometimes it's a herding cats battle pretty much.
You go, Michelle.
Oh, thanks. I was gonna say, as a mentor and as an adult in the room, that I think I see our job as to assist the students, and sometimes kind of the situation you're describing could be starting to set up an unhealthy relationship with your peers, your coworkers in a sense, as team co-leads, things like that. And to Tom's point, that is one of the important pieces where it's okay and you're totally in bounds to ask for help. And and that might be just even to facilitate the discussion, depending on how your team operates. But that's a big responsibility as a student. I think if you're being put into the situation sometimes where you're not just a peer and a leader, but also having to intervene in some ways like that, where maybe that's where a mentor should be helping to guide that discussion. So I don't think, and that's a learning process. That's even something that adults in management struggle with too. And I think, so there's a lot of dynamics there. And to echo Tom, I think that's one good opportunity to maybe have a discussion with a mentor and maybe talk about some ways to maybe work through that.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're hoping to do this year is thinking about how does the task work towards the bigger goal, and also thinking about personal goals for robotics, right? What are you hoping to get out of spending all this time on the team? And so I know during our first meeting, we went around saying, what do you want to do on the team this year, right? And so thinking about, if you talk with those students, being like, why are you here at robotics? Why are you putting all this time into coming to these meetings? Why did you join the team in the first place? Sort of thinking about, where are they coming from? And then thinking about what tasks can they do that align with those goals, right? Thinking about if they want to learn how to code the robot, right? If they want to code the robot, thinking about, what are the steps there to, once build season comes around, so that they can actually get code onto the robot, right? Or if they want to, be driver, right? What tasks can they do, right, to think about, becoming the driver for build season, right? Maybe they, practice on a driving simulator, or maybe they do the controls programming for the mini trials robot or whatever, right? Thinking about what steps can they start now to achieve the goals they have for the year. And also thinking about what does this year, how would you call this year successful? That's something we like to ask our new students of when you're at the end of the year and you're looking back on it, what would you say means that we had a successful year? And so thinking about, goal setting is also really helpful for that as well, so that people get engaged with the work.
Lily, have we beat this dead horse enough for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone have anything that they think really sort of defines their team of like, if there's one thing that our team has in terms of culture, this is it. And what is that thing, and how did that become a thing for your culture, or how do you incorporate that into your kind of ethos with the students?
I don't know if this really is what you're getting at. I'm going to jump in and say our team is pretty strongly student driven as well. But we do try to make sure there is an adult or two around, not to beat that dead horse again. But my favorite meetings and practices are really when I don't do much of anything. The students are all interacting with each other and making sure things move forward. So that's kind of, at the same time, there was a time we've been together 17 or 18 years, depending on how you count it. Not me. I've only been around a couple years. And we've been to Worlds 5 times, and the question sort of comes up, how important is Worlds? It's been 6 years now. So students may or may not have the capacity to organize themselves well enough to get back to Worlds. That's something we're trying to figure out. So so student led, that's our thing.
I don't necessarily know what like one word or phrase to define like our culture, but I know what we do to work on it. I mentioned unicorn families before. I also mentioned our closing meetings, which have been super helpful. I also think beyond our team retreat, we also have a mentor retreat that happened in August. And we have a captain's retreat that happened at the beginning of September. And those have been really helpful. I can talk about the captain's retreat because I went this year, for just sort of setting both expectations of what is the role of the mentor or the captain. And then also saying, as a captain's team, this is what we want to do this year. Thinking about like last year, there was a huge push for thinking about how do we give each other feedback, right? So we came up with the structure of feedback needs to be warm, it needs to be timely, it needs to be specific. And so we've been practicing that now, when we have our team retreat, we do like skits of providing each other feedback, so that students can get practice with that. And so that's been really helpful, so that when like issues arise, students have the tools to advocate for themselves, to fix those issues or to make change in the team. And so that has been really helpful for our team culture, when thinking about, how do we move forward as a team, giving students the resources and the processes to make that change has been super helpful for us.
So this is Eric with Talon Robotics, and we're very much like Tom's team, that it's totally student-led. But we do students, all our meetings for the students are at the school, but they can't meet without a mentor present. But that doesn't mean the mentors have to be involved at all. But we do require mentors to be present. But we fortunately have, for each sub-team, a mentor that works with the lead for that group. And I think agreeing with, Tom, maybe this is some of the reasons it's harder to get to Worlds. Sometimes I would say we don't have the most sophisticated robot, but we're very proud of it being student driven.
Jeremiah, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
I have a question for those awesome people like Tom and Eric in the room that have these student-led team, because actually that's like my like you, I think Tom, you said it. Some of my favorite practices have been ones that all I do is I answer a question that is like, where do I get this or something like that, not me being saying, hey, you go ahead and do this, you do that, directing people to doing things. But those don't come very frequent on my team. So how do you how do you guys kind of get, just so I go to bed now? Um, sorry, Dad always. um, so how do you guys get to that point where your kids feel like, you know, we share the vision with our mentors, and so they're just gonna be here to make sure that we don't bleed tear, guts, and blood, or none of that stuff. But we can actually, because the new kids are joining the team, and this is kind of my message to them. We've had one-on-one, they meet with me one-on-one, and I say, look, this is a show that you get what you put in. And I want you, when you leave this team one day, to say, I was on robotics for these many years, and this is what I'm walking away with, and how tangible I can use that anywhere I go. And that means that you have to invest in it, not just during practice. Because if you want to learn to do a CAD, I got this one new girl that I'm hoping that's my unicorn to save my team with programming. She's like, I like programming. I'm like, yes. And I'm like, but you have to learn that stuff. Because I have one kid that been with the team the longest, and he wants to do programming, but he would never put any bit of time in it outside of practice. I'm no programmer. And I think, Scott, the kid I'm talking about probably. I just I don't have the tool to say, okay, you and I will get together, we'll do this here and do that there. So now a lot of my kids lack the initiative to get up and go. I literally have to push them. I'm like, you go in this direction, you go in that direction. This is your task for the day. This is your task for the day. It is exhausting. And I'm hoping to walk away from that eventually, but I don't know how you guys got where you are, and I would love to know the roadmap.
So for my team, what we did was that, well, we had some like really big personalities that would basically drive the team, but we mostly have it so that we have previous years like students teach the new like students, and we have like sort of this chain that goes down where like the more knowledgeable students like teach the less knowledgeable students, and then those students teach the even less knowledgeable students. But also this kind of like, even after like students leave, we still like talk to them sometimes. Like they stay in the Slack, and they can give like insight to the newer students on how to do things basically. And we're like really heavily student led. We don't have like a bunch of mentors like teaching us anything at all really. But something that you can do to like maybe make your students more interested in like doing work outside of like the robotics classroom is you can give them like tasks to do within their sub team to learn more about it, like more accessible resources. What I did for like my like the people I'm like teaching code is I told them to go to Code Academy, like make a free account and learn a bit of code. And after they start like learning a bit of the code, I think it's really easy to get addicted to it in a way. Like I did a little bit of Code Academy, and then I would have like 4-hour sessions of just staying on there.
Dominic, do you want to jump in now, or should I go?
You go.
I would support what Lily said. Jeremiah, I don't remember. I'm just going to say again, we've been around for 17 or 18 years, depending on how you count it. You have to get to a point where you have a student or a set of students capable of doing what Lily suggests or indicates. And that you might not be quite there yet where you have that student leadership pool. You might still be developing that. I would say it's also really important to recruit as many mentors as you can so you don't get burnt out. Not so that they're doing things, but just so that they're there, present. The student, that chain that Lily said is really valuable, but students don't necessarily know how to maintain their own quality assurance year over year. So it's also useful to have adults around besides yourself that can step in and know how to keep on target. Things might drift a lot if the students don't have a little bit of that going on. And Lily, you can tell me I'm completely wrong. That's understandable. That's from an adult's experience. That's some thoughts that I have for you, Jeremiah.
And like you said, and you're right too, because sometimes I'm my own worst critic. I push myself harder than probably in anything I've ever done. And sometimes my wife would be like, you're too much into this. And part of that is because I don't do anything halfway. And so, and if a challenge come my way, instead of me backing out, I'm one of those idiots that dig in deeper and I bury myself deeper into it. But truthfully, I think I'm really proud of the kids that we have on our team. This is we go into our 4th season now, and I think when you look at the work that they've done and it just the community they've established in our small town is, in my opinion, incredible. But I'm a people pusher, so I'm always my expectation is always going to be high, and so that's part of my downfall too, is because I just we got to be better, and part of that is I'm trying to have these, just like you said, student leadership. And a curse of a small town rural teams is that you got 317 kids in a school entirely, elementary through high school. And yeah, well, in the secondary, that's probably, about slightly over half of that. And then you have those same kids doing every stinking thing on planet Earth. And so that in itself, exhaustion, burnout from other activities. And then when you come in and say, I would like to see this come out of you, I would like to see you, in this way. And sometimes too, it ends up putting them too up against the rope, and some of them just fall into this pattern of learned helplessness. But overall, I really am proud of the kids I have, and the things they do is just I just want more for them, because this is like I always tell them, I have my career. I love what I do. I'm just trying to develop you so that you can be a better person for it when you leave. It's not just a participant sport that you were part of for, well, I just sat on the bench. Yeah, well, like the new kid we just got. I said, what did you do on your previous team? Because she switched school over to our district. She said, well, the boys did everything and the girls just went along. And I'm like, well, on this team, you're gonna have the skin in the game, because I just don't let the boys do everything. The girls do as much as the boys do, if sometimes even more. So just get yourself ready for that type of thing. But thanks, Tom.
Yeah, I have 2 things. One, I would say one thing for me and my friends is we are constantly talking about robotics, and so that means that we have that drive to make the team better. I know one of my friends basically has Chief Delphi be his social media. He's not on Instagram, he's not on TikTok, he's on Chief Delphi, right? That is his social media right there. Which is sort of healthy, sort of unhealthy, but it really inspires him to be like, okay, if these are what the other teams are doing, what can we do with that? And second of all, I would say we like to call our team student led, mentor supported. And so one thing we do is all of our student captains, we meet with our mentors to sort of go over, all right, what are the tasks we need to do for this week, right? What are our goals for the year? Like, what are we pushing for, right? Or like, and then also that's a really great way to sort of say, hey, this student isn't engaging in the work right now. Like, maybe like what solutions can we come up with as a group, right? Having that sort of group behind the student leader has been really helpful, sort of giving them grounded confidence, giving them the tools they need to succeed. And so that's been really helpful. I know literally right before this meeting, we had our operations meeting with the mentors. And so that's been super helpful, talking about, oh, we have students on the team that, aren't, fulfilling their roles, right? We want to talk with them about sort of setting expectations. But then we're also like, all right, here's what we want to do during this practice and this next practice. And so that's been super helpful, sort of having that support behind you so you're not feeling like you're trying to do it alone from the student perspective.
Hey, Jeremy, I like what you're saying on how the mentors are supporting you. So basically, I'm one of the programming mentors, but I don't teach programming. It's basically trying to get the students' lead directed and guiding him on a curriculums to teach the other kids, encouraging the next sort of a legacy for the kids coming down, and keeping them excited, and making sure that they have no roadblocks. If they need anything to get done what they need, then I make sure that they have those tools. So that's my that's how I mentor, but I don't actually do any of the or teach the programming. It's for the making sure that the students can efficiently teach each other.
Well, we're getting close to 8:30. Does anybody have any final questions they want to ask, or remaining things they were hoping to push out there that hasn't been talked about yet? Okay. So a couple of announcements. I do know what our topic's going to be for the next 2 weeks. Next week, the 6th, Dominic, who's on the call tonight, they have signed up to share everything you want to know about No Mythic. I guess I think that's pretty much it's going to be the title, right? Everything you want to know about No Mythic. So Dominic's going to tell us all about what it means to be on No Mythic and some background and some history, I assume. So I look forward to that. I think this is going to be. I would like to see more of this ongoing. I know in the email that I sent out last night, it'd be great to hear some of those things about the insides, secret sauce for some of the teams. So if your team has anything they want to share about maybe, just things that we should know about your teams, things that you do. I know I heard last week, which was really smart. Someone said, hey, we had never considered this fundraiser until somebody said it, and now it's one of our best fundraisers. Those types of things, you just never know what you might share about your team that others are going to adopt, and it'll become just so important to their team and their culture or their finances or whatever it may be. So if you're willing to pull together a group of students and say, we're going to present on our team, we'd love to have that. I mean, I know that my students are probably going to be giving a presentation to a sponsor. And so similar stuff, if you want to practice, what does it mean to be part of the team, and what do we do and how do we do it? There's probably a lot that you can be pulled from things that you may already be doing. And then the week after that, October 13th, Talon's going to give us a talk about how they set up a new training strategy. I was actually going to talk about training tonight, and then I saw that Talon was going to do that, so I didn't want to step on any of their stuff. So that's really awesome. Talon's going to come in and talk about how they've restructured their training, and I really look forward to hearing that as well. So we're pushing out to October 20th and the 27th. So if anyone has a topic that they're willing to share or present, I know Jumpstart's somewhere in there. So if you're thinking about giving a Jumpstart presentation, This is a great place to practice. Bring your presentation here and share it with the group and get some feedback. We'd love to have anybody who's giving a presentation do that here as well. So any last thoughts before we go for the night? All right. Well, thank you very much. Dominic, I really appreciate you stepping in sort of on a whim here and leading a lot of our discussion. That was really awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Have a great night.